Welcome to Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
It is the Singapore Grand Prix preview. We're going to talk everything that we know so far about Singapore and the Grand Prix, the championship, everything that's been going on, and some interesting stories, some fun stories. Singapore, it looks super hot, super wet, super sticky. Darren, you've been there.
Yeah.
What can the drivers expect?
Well, as soon as you walk out of the airport, it's just poof, heat. It's a special heat, I find, with that area of the world, and the smell of the air. It's just that Singapore for me. You know, you get it with Kuala Lumpur as well, and a few of those others. So there's a real intensity with that heat. So just to be walking around in shorts and a t-shirt and sweating, whether you're going to the track or whatever you're doing, and of course it's a hot climate, hot air temperature. The race is at night. It's like the original nighttime Grand Prix that they did under lights. So the first one, a few others have tried to copy it, but I think this one's really special. So the temperatures, the sun's down, obviously. The temperatures are at their lowest. But what I find really interesting with this weekend is a lot of people stay on European time. So they don't really deal with the intensity of the daytime heat other than getting up and having breakfast at 3 p.m. and then heading to the track and then staying there till maybe 1, 2 in the morning. So that heat intensity of the air is the thing. So by putting the suits on and getting in the cars and sitting behind a hot engine, I think this is one of the most physical tracks for any driver to deal with and a real challenge.
It must be so grueling. I mean, they're going to be losing so much fluids, body weight as well. I mean, it's a real endurance, isn't it? It's a real endurance race. And there have been changes as well to the track layout, I heard as well.
That's right.
Tell us about that?
Well, my understanding is that they've removed 4 corners, I think which of one of them's a chicane. So it's just created a long straight. There's a new event centre been opened there. So they've had to rearrange this because of development and things changing. The only thing I'd say is by adding a straight and having less corners, of course, it's going to advantage Red Bull. You know, the corners, the street track layout, and I'm expecting to see Aston Martin back up there again like they were in Zandvoort and Monaco because of the street thing. I think Ferrari are going to drop back a bit and be there fighting with Mercedes and McLaren, but I think we're going to see Aston Martin be the second team this weekend is my prediction.
Well, I actually saw in practice just now that Aston Martin have added a new feature to their car. One they had in Zandvoort, but they didn't have in Monza. They call it the bow tie. And this bow tie attaches to underneath the rain light. And it helps kind of get that air just through the car, basically. It helps push it through. We're not engineers, so we don't know all the
it's
aerodynamics.
It's fascinating, but I couldn't design it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a clue. Yeah. But
and it's amazing what these engineers think of because F1 really is about incremental change. You know, if you think of it like an iPhone, well, the new iPhone's coming out, that's okay, great. But then what is the real change? Well, there's small incremental changes. So you may not see it between cars, but then say in 5 years' time, all those incremental changes add up to a car which is crazy fast, like we're seeing with the Red Bull. But they're trying something different, something new. Whether other teams will add winglets, if they'll add these bow ties to the back of the car, I don't know. We'll see. But they're always very eagle-eyed. I'm sure they've already clocked it.
I think it's really interesting. Really interesting, Joe, with Friday morning practices where we get to see these developments come onto the car. And of course, by the time we've heard of it, I'm sure all the other teams have seen it, photographed it, copied it back to headquarters, and really, you know, they're just spies the whole time on each other. So let's see. I'm hopeful for Aston Martin this weekend, and hopefully they'll have 2 cars in the points by the end of the weekend. Hope Lance Stroll has got to start delivering. So we'll see. But this little bow tie winglet, I'm interested to see what it does. Really, but aerodynamics are the thing that keep changing all the time. I think the engines have less development over the time because they can only use 4 of them in a season. and without penalty. But aerodynamics, you can keep adding, as long as you're within the regulations, you can keep adding wings, keep adding side pods, changing the shape of it. Look at what Mercedes had at the start of the season, where they had those really no side pods and had to completely change tack. And they've been better since they've gone back to a more traditional design, which is basically copying Red Bull, which is what everyone's doing. So, yeah, bow tie. What a funny thing to call it.
It's a fun thing. I'm glad those side pods have gone with Mercedes. It looked very strange, and I think they're being very clever. And you think, oh, yeah, well, there's less resistance. It looks like there's less drag. But it's not really about, it's not that simple. It's about how the air flows. And sometimes the air can flow over the car and kind of expel quicker, and it can just make it even more aerodynamic. Also, in practice, you see, I think the right word is it flumes. They have the kind of little dies that they put at the front of the car, and as they start racing off and having a good practice, this die just kind of spreads across the car and shows the engineers and the aerodynamic experts exactly where the air is flowing, because constructors only have limited time in their wind tunnels, and sometimes they get penalties, and so they get penalties on their wind tunnel usage. So this is a really clever way to get a bit more aerodynamic feedback, really, so that you can, again, the factory could be seeing this, they can take all the snaps, take it back, and then actually they fly out new parts, as you said, overnight. I mean, there's private jets flying backwards and forwards with little parts like this, because it might make them a bit faster, make them more competitive, and then get the points, which is where they earn the money.
That's right.
Talking of points, Max, I mean, look, he's probably going to like the circuit. We know Lewis loves this circuit. I think he's probably got the best track record at Singapore. Can Max do it again? I mean, he's just a machine at the moment. He's got the momentum. I mean, dare we say he can't?
Well, do you know what? I think the only thing that's going to get in the way of Max is reliability or wrong place, wrong time. And, if we think back to 2017, the first lap of the Singapore Grand Prix, where the two Ferraris of Vettel and Raikkonen pincered Max in the middle and, of course, collided, and Raikkonen was off, and then Vettel span around on turn 2 and was going backwards down the track. Max was out of the race. This is a circuit where it's so close in. The walls are right on the edge of the track because of the street circuit, just like Monaco. The only thing is if Max gets out of the first corner in the front, he's gone. He's done it. And we are in this point of time where I've said it before, we're witnessing history now. Can Max do it for 11th time, 12th? Where's it going to end? We just don't know. But I think that Red Bull is bulletproof, is it not? I can't see it being reliability. I think it's going to be wrong place, wrong time, if anything.
I think maybe the weather might get to him, because it is a shock, going suddenly into a hot country, like you said. Maybe that's going to be a factor, but I don't know. I think he's kind of preparing himself for this. I mean, probably more questions about Perez. So, how is Perez going to do? Is he going to qualify, as fast? Is he going to be up front? It's such a windy circuit, tons of corners, tons of energy. It's about that. It's about qualifying, really, to get a good place and to get a good start, as is often with most races. But I think here even more so. Perez I think he's still a great driver, and there's been lots of speculation, lots of questions, but I don't know. He needs to put in a really good performance. He's currently second still in the driver's standings, so you don't get there by being a rubbish driver. So I'd like to see a bit more magic from Perez. I'm hoping we're going to see that. I'd love to see Lewis do well. Obviously, we're a fan of the Brits, and I'm wearing the McLaren shirt today.
You are today. Looks good, Joe.
I think it does. This is good. This is this season's as well, I should have I
can see the DKX sponsorship. Yes, this season.
OKX. Yeah.
OKX. What am I talking about?
I think. Yeah. And this is actually the crew, because I wore this in Bahrain this year, at Bahrain Grand Prix, and I nearly got accosted by one of the guys because they thought I was one of the team, like in the Paddock Club, walking around having fun. And I should have been down there, like, getting some tyres off the trolley or something.
Joe, there's no reason why you can't be part of the pit crew. There's no reason.
Why can't I just help out and just give them a hand and it'll be fine? But one difference is that they have their names. They have like their name here of all the crew members and all the staff. So I didn't have my name. So he kind of looked
put
at
it
my
on there,
chest
Joe.
and said,
Put the name on there, mate.
I'm planning to, and then I'll be leading the I'll be sat next to Zach Brown, cheering all with my head in my hands. But I think McLaren are going to have fun this race. Lando has had some upgrades, I've heard, so I think he's excited about that. I think he's going to have a really good race. I just think he's really primed. He's really up for it. I think he's excited by all this news swirling around about his future. I think he really wants to get stuck in and prove to any successive bosses he's a great racer and he'll be a great teammate for someone.
Well, talking about teammates, Piastri has just not surprised many people, but he's delivering straight out of the box, like he did in F2 and so on. And Mark Webber, his manager, of course, knew this. To replace Ricciardo was a tough call, I felt, last year. But with Lando now, he's being pushed by his teammate. And I think they've got one of the strongest driver lineups. And so I can see Piastri being right up there. I think we might see a McLaren podium this weekend. I think they're going to be strong with Aston Martin.
I think so.
Yeah, and like we're sat here recording it during FP1, and I can see both Ferraris are the two fastest at the moment, behind Verstappen and Norris. So, maybe Ferrari are going to be in the mix too still, after a great weekend at Monza. Yeah. But, of course, that's long straights all the time.
It's true. Yeah, let's see how... Talking of pit crews and Ferrari, I mean, there's been a lot of memes online about... there's been some great memes of the driver comes in for the tyre change and they're still in there having coffee and playing cards and stuff inside.
Yeah.
Really, really embarrassing as, whatever. Kind of maybe that Italian mentality to it.
There's a definite mentality in that team, mate, that just doesn't seem to... Every year they seem to make the most mistakes. It doesn't. They keep changing their team principle as well.
Urgency, isn't there?
Yeah. It's a very odd thing, but it's nostalgic, It's Ferrari. It's everybody wants to drive for them, but there's got to be something to switch on to make them win a world championship at some point. And we thought the beginning of 2022, this is it. Charles Leclerc taking on Max, but they just faded away with mistake after mistake after mistake, But I still have to say,
that's the problem, though. So you just you nailed it on the head. It's like they are Ferrari, and I think that is the problem. Hey, we're Ferrari. This is how we do it. And no, you got to be hungry. You got to be hungry for this. That's why Christian Horner is on the team wall. Really, on it all the time. And Toto's in the garage and everything. There's been a thing. Why isn't Toto out on the team wall? But they're both sat there, with their fingers in their mouths, biting their nails. Because they're hungry for it,
I think they always look forward as well. They're not really interested in the stats of 10 wins for Max. It's going to be 11. That's what the fans do. That's what we're doing. They just literally look at what's going to happen this weekend, and deal with this weekend and ahead all the time.
Yeah, no, that's true, and they're so. Toto made some comments as well, about Max's new record that he did for 11 consecutive races, and he's like, well, I don't think he really cares, well, who cares? It's about winning. It's about getting.
He wants to win every driver wants to win every race. If they didn't have that mentality, they shouldn't be in the car. And so, I think you could put any one of those 20 drivers in a Red Bull right now, and we could see any one of them win, whether it's Logan Sargent, Zhou, Tsunoda. In that Red Bull right now, it's almost like we want to have a series where we get to see them all drive the best car at some point. Maybe a winter series or something like that we could bring in where every driver switches.
I'd love to have, well, we kind of have it with, F2, F3, but
Mm-hmm.
like an F1, like a football league.
Yeah.
Where you could be relegated and promoted. So
Yeah.
say in F2, it's still F1 cars, but then you've got like, Grosjean in there, or I don't know, different. Hulkenberg was in, now he's back up, and that would be a really interesting thing.
With Grosjean going over to IndyCar in America, doing the oval circuits and street circuits, you sort of do get that, whether it is F2 or IndyCar or NASCAR or the various series. They are there, but it's just money, Joe, isn't it? Is the you look at Michael Andretti trying to bring in his team, because the Concord Agreement states that you can have 12 teams, but the FIA have to approve them, and then Liberty Media, F1, have to approve them as well. But of course, there's only one pot of prize money that currently is divided into 10 lots. If there's an 11th team or a 12th team that come in, like High Tech are talking about it, that money is going to be split between 12 ways. Are Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes going to agree to that? And I'd love to see more teams
Ferrari
come in.
Is no.
Yeah, of course it is. And that's
Ferrari,
we need more competition.
No, definitely. And Ferrari get a bonus. So they're very strange with the prize money allocation, because they get like an additional 2%, I think it may be. Don't quote me on that, everyone on the internet. But they do get a bonus for being in the... They get paid to be there.
So do you think that's the reason,
no other team
Joe, do you think that's the reason why they don't have that hunger and why they're stuck in nostalgia that just causes that slight difference of competitiveness?
Yeah, because essentially they're getting special treatment.
Yeah.
They're getting special treatment. They're kind of getting paid to be there. As you said in previous episodes, Ferrari are all over the world. They're one of the world's most famous marques. But they need a team principal who's got fire in their bellies and is like, no guys, no coffee, we're getting back out there and we're doing this, and and run a tight ship. And this is the thing, like, you've got two great drivers there. Sainz and Leclerc show moments of absolute brilliance, but it's often mechanical failures, and it's the car that lets them down. It's poor pit stops.
Yep.
It's really bad strategy. All these things are back in the garage. The drivers can do, and yes, they make mistakes. Leclerc's made mistakes and everything. It's true, but the majority has been back at the base. So it needs to change. You need someone in there who's going to really shake it up. I don't know if Fred's the guy for that. I don't know. He seems a bit quiet. I don't hear much about Fred.
He's really my mate Fred. Yeah, he's he is quiet.
Your mate Fred.
And yeah, he is quiet, and Benotti was a bit of a character, but it always just seems to be the same old story. And you look at Red Bull with Christian, you look at McLaren. Zach's been there a number of years now, and Ron Dennis prior to that. You look at Mercedes with Toto; they're not changing their team principle every other season. I think they need stability. I think we need an even playing field where Ferrari don't get preferential treatment, so therefore they get more hunger. I think they've got great driver lineup with Sainz now racing as well as he's ever raced now. He was the last. Was he the last Ferrari driver to win at Silverstone, or did they win? Did Leclerc win Austria just after? But he's won a race now, Silverstone 2022. I think they've got a great driver lineup, and we need to be seeing the best from Ferrari, not just their drivers. So fingers crossed, we will.
And talking about driver lineups, there's a few things here. So we've got, firstly, at AlphaTauri, we've still got Liam Lawson in the seat because Daniel Ricciardo, he's still recovering from his hand injury. But Daniel has been spotted. He is at Singapore, kind of cheering from the sidelines, watching the race on TV, which... It's back to square one.
Yeah, it's absolutely back to what he's doing. Me too.
This is actually a mini helmet I was given by someone at McLaren, which I'm very thankful for. And this is one of the Honey Badgers. What does it say? It says, all good, always. Okay, so it's awesome. Honey Badger. I think... could you imagine that?
I was thinking the same thing, Joe.
Yeah. I've been mugged
Yeah.
off.
Mate, they're
no,
so
but
cool, those midgets.
He's back to square one.
Yeah.
You know, he's back there watching the race. Liam Lawson is doing so well.
But
I don't know,
Joe, you
Liam
get,
Lawson
you know,
maybe hack this.
you get the luck, luck, good luck, bad luck happens. Daniel's had a really great career and has been in the best car and won Grand Prix. And I felt he really deserved to come back in to replace Nick de Vries. But I think what Daniel did by avoiding hitting Piastri in Zandvoort and by turning into the Armco and to crash, that's human nature kicking in, rather than having a side-on impact and worse things. I think he was a bit of a hero. It's not he did the right thing. He's suffering for it now. I think he'll be back in the car in Qatar, I think, at the earliest. Japan being next week, and the fact that he's fractured his metacarpal, I think it's called, in his hand, in seven places. 7 places it's fractured. So that's, we can compare the recovery time to Lance Stroll breaking his wrists before the start of the season. He came back within about 30 days. But I think actually part of Stroll's form could be to do with that injury as well and coming back too soon. So for Daniel's sake, for AlphaTauri's sake, and for Red Bull's sake, let's not rush this. There's still a lot of races to go. Let's get his hand totally better and see what Daniel can do. And in the meantime, let's see what Liam Lawson can do. I think they're in a really strong position. And I think that Yuki Tsunoda, who has upped his game this season, he needs to look over his shoulder as well.
Yeah, Liam could definitely pose a threat to either seat, actually. And there's, as we know, there's always someone there on the sidelines waiting to take over. And so, let's see how that plays out. Another team which has just actually reinforced their lineup is Alfa Romeo. Zhao Wenyu is re-signed.
Yes.
Is that a surprise? I don't know if it's a surprise. Because the Chinese Grand Prix is next year, that's back on the calendar, and there'll be a Chinese driver. So they need... China's such a huge market. If they can really get behind F1 and, there's a Chinese guy there. I mean, we've seen it with movies and Hollywood. They make movies now to kind of, what's the word? To, I don't know, placate China in some ways, but also to kind of, show off their talent. I just saw the Meg 2, the Trench with Jason Statham.
I've not seen it yet.
Chinese-made film.
Okay, I
It's
didn't
good.
know that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
It's not
I've
going to win the
I've seen
Oscars,
I've seen the first one, and we actually really enjoyed it. It was better than we expected. But I think you're absolutely right. And what we always have to remember as fans, we just want to see the racing and see the cars and feel the energy at the circuits and those cars going past you. You stand at the entrance to Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone. And that's the closest I think you can get to a Formula One car. Or I stood at the entrance to Racehouse this year in Monaco and watched. I remember Sainz coming past me and Alonso, and man, to feel that feeling. That's, as fans, that's what we want. But it's a business. And that Chinese money and Chinese economy, we need Formula One to be back there and to be making that happen. So I think you're absolutely right. Zhou is in that seat for that market and to bring those extra fans in. We've not had a Chinese Grand Prix since 2019, and I think that Shanghai circuit is a brilliant circuit. I love it, with an amazing long straight, with DRS down into an 180-degree hairpin, come back. And, of course, it'll always be remembered for Lewis Hamilton, 2007, coming into the pits and overcooking it, crashing his car into the entrance of the pits and losing his rookie championship. That's where he lost it for me, was that moment when he came in the pits and blew it. I think it's a great circuit. I can't wait for us to be back there.
That reminds me of 2021 when he did that at Azerbaijan with the restart. I think it was 1 lap to go.
Yes, his brakes were cold.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
If he'd won that race, which he was basically it was a tee-in for him, a shoe-in, then he would have been world champion. But there we go.
There's lots of moments like that. And with Daniel, it's another moment where you get the bad luck, but you get the good luck. And that's part of being a sportsman. You've got to accept both sides of it. and come out where you come out. And of course, Max has had a lot of bad luck, as we said. Singapore 2017. Look at him, 10 races in a row. He's going to be 3 times world champion, matching Ayrton Senna. I don't think he's got anything to moan about.
No, and neither does the team. I think if they win this race, and if Perez does okay too, potentially they could win the Constructors' Championship as well at Singapore. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Things have to go their way. Okay, so I think we're looking at a Red Bull two on the podium, and with who is it at the moment in the constructors? Is it Mercedes that are now second? I haven't got it in front of me, Joe. I should have it in front of me. So
yeah, maybe Mercedes. Maybe I think maybe Mercedes.
Mercedes and
look, an incredible achievement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's Mercedes.
I know, Fernando's third in the drivers, I know, and Lewis is fourth. But I think because of Lance hasn't been as fast as George Russell, that's why Mercedes are up there.
That's exactly it.
Look, that would be great. It's a great thing for the team. But then, then it's one more race, Japan, so Max could sew that up. Then when could Perez sew up his second place? And in the rest of the season, I don't think Max would let up. If he does win the championship in Japan, he'll have some fun. I'm sure we'll have a great party. He'll want to win the rest. I mean, he's not the kind of guy that will just kind of sit back and go, okay, fine. He may not have to take as many risks, and that's also a good thing. He won't have to push as hard as he can, but that is in his nature. He's like a fighter pilot, And I think we could see some real history being made this season. Certainly for most races being won in a season, that could also happen. So, these are legends, these drivers. Talking of another legend, nice little link there. I heard you've got some news about Nigel Mansell.
Yeah, so for me, my first ever race I went to was Silverstone 1992, and I watched Mansell in the Williams win by half a lap, and that was the season he won the championship. So for me, if anybody says who's your favourite Formula One driver, I think quite often it's the ones you link into first. So for me, it would be Nigel Mansell, Derek Warwick, those British drivers from the late 80s, early 90s. And he is auctioning...
Can I just say very quickly
go on.
To interrupt you? Damon Hill for me, because I grew up in that era and I used to watch Damon Hill, and he's a former world champion. So yeah, Damon for me. And I've met him, and he's a very, very nice guy.
He's lovely, mate. In fact, he recently opened a building that my wife had been involved in building in Guildford. So he's friends with the financier on it, and so met him then, and also met him at Silverstone Classics last year. He was doing a Q&A before I went on stage on the big Silverstone festival stage with Bjorn again. So no, he's a top guy, mate. So we'll put a couple of photos up, shall we? So do that.
We love Damon. Damon, we love you.
So well, there you go. It's brilliant. I totally agree with you. So Nigel Mansell in the Williams, 1992. Damon Hill in the Williams, 1996. Frank Williams, absolute legend. So we all want to see Williams do well. Let's go back to Mansell. I'm really sad that he's selling off all this memorabilia. I don't know if he needs the money. He's got his Mansell Museum that it was all in, but he is selling it off, and there has to be a reason, which I don't know. It might be a charitable reason, which is brilliant. It might, he might be. I just don't know. But I felt a little bit sad about it. All this Formula One history needs to be in one place for the fans. I heard about it, and I'd love to be sat here with his 1992 Silverstone helmet, full size, Joe, is what I'd love to be sat here showing. But you're the man with the memorabilia. I'm a little bit jealous. I'm gonna bring some down next time.
I have got some stuff. I've just realised. I've got some books here as well.
Look at you.
This is like, what is this? This is like every single year they have one of these books.
Joe, show me the cover again.
Like everything that happened.
Show me the cover again. I'm not sure. I've got something like it. I don't know if it's the one, but I'm going to look it out, Joe. I'm going to look it out.
It's very old school. And then I've got this kind of big thing. Oh, need to just put water.
Steady.
Sterling Moss has done the forward on both of these, but this is a really interesting thing. It's kind of like the Treasures of Formula One. It's called.
Oh, nice!
It's a really interesting book.
Is that
And
Lewis's
it's all about
2007 car on the front?
I believe it is. Yeah, and on the back you can see there's lots of like historic things. You know, going way back.
I love it.
Way back to 50s and things. So,
wow.
It's really cool. It's worth a read, and all these things have been faithfully reproduced, and they're actual pieces of like reproductions of Monaco things.
Yeah.
And there's passes and all sorts. So keep your eye out for this
Joe,
kind of stuff.
I've got a feeling we need to write our own book with photos of our own memorabilia in that we've got from races where we've been. You haven't picked up, there's the that made me laugh. I was walking around the track at Silverstone, which I've done with you as well, and everybody's picking up every bit of memorabilia they can get, such as like, when you see the 150 metre, 100 metre, 50 metre, the braking points for each corner. And there's people walking around with I find it amazing. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of idiots. And then I sit here and realise I'd love it if I had one of those with me right now. It's funny.
Well, we'll do this, I think, another time as a special podcast. But to talk about track walks, there's only so many in the world you're allowed to do it. Like the Middle East ones, you're not allowed to do it, for example. But Silverstone, Monza, there's many more. Like, to walk around the track is such a great thing. And we spent about, an hour?
Oh, longer than that. Longer than that, mate, I think.
We did stop for a bacon roll, didn't we?
We did. We did. At Chapel.
By Maggots and Beckett's. I was at Chapel, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just a bit further down.
But it's about, 5K? They're usually about 5K.
Yes, around that.
It's a nice walk.
You don't realise how wide the circuits are, Joe, do you? You don't realise how wide they are until you actually walk on them. And you just go, wow, it's so special. And again, I always think, the people that drove down these circuits. So I think of Mansell in Silverstone. I think of Schumacher. You think of Hamilton. These people that have, and Senna, who have filled this space and created the history that we love and enjoy on television every other weekend. It's so special to walk a track. And there's this thing going around at the moment, I think, where people want to kiss the track. Have you ever kissed a track, Joe?
I'm sure I kissed the track with you.
Did we do it?
I'm sure we
might have done.
did it. I think it's something I would have done. I'm a bit of a track kisser. I think I may have actually.
Perhaps we'll get
some
something
photos
going
somewhere. So
we'll
try and
dig
up some photos because it comes a bit blasé. When you're there, you kind of like, oh, okay, you're at work kind of thing. But we're at Formula One, and we kind of forget. And then when your mate's like, how was your weekend? You're like, oh, yeah, it was all right. Because you don't really want to go on about it, how you were, in helicopters,
Joe,
going around Monaco or whatever.
We were a little bit naughty.
Another
once.
super yacht.
Oh, mate, I know. Do you remember when we were at Portimao? It was on the Thursday. We were setting up, and the gates were open on the track, and you said, come on, let's get a little selfie on the track. So you and I go out on the track, and, of course, they've got cameras everywhere, so all the marshals, everybody can see everything. They must have seen us. And I think we then heard the safety car was coming round the corner. We were like, get off the track, Joe. It was little moments like that.
We were
we were a little naughty, but you've got to take these moments sometimes and just and enjoy them. But I always think, when we used to see the guy waving the checkered flag, he'd run on the track and do it in front of the cars, and the safety
now they
side.
Get
I know
Stormzy or the celebrity du jour comes over and does it.
Mate,
I heard a thing. Martin Brundle's track walks are being kind of paused.
Well, I did notice in Monza, mate, that it wasn't happening. Was it Monza or Zandvoort? I'm not sure. And I thought, is he there? Is he not there? Is it? Do you think it's because there's been a few celebrity issues and they're just trying to quieten it down?
Well, it's the Cara Delevingne thing, wasn't it? Which kind of kicked off a bit, and maybe they complained. I'm not sure, but that's a real staple. I love that. The pre-race track walk with Martin Brundle on Sky Sports, for those who don't know. And he goes up and down the track. He talks to engineers, talks to team principals, drivers when he can. He talks to celebrities who are there, and in that particular one, where was it? Silverstone.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was Silverstone, Cara Delevingne, and he bumped into Sam Ryder of Eurovision
Yes,
fame.
that's right.
And Sam did his usual, "Oh hi, how's it going?" But then he started to go into about like McLaren and their chances for the weekend, and he gave like a really, really good buzz. So Sam, we absolutely love that. And if you want to come on the podcast and talk Formula One, we'll happily get you on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Very, very impressed. But I think that needs to be the balance. It's great to have a celebrity on there, but sometimes it's so obvious they're just there to plug a film,
Yeah,
or
but
or to have that thing.
But Joe, you're looking at it from a fan's point of view. This is a business again, and it's one of the world's biggest platforms. It's the biggest sport. It's huge television coverage. These celebrities, actors need to be there to promote their movies, promote their songs, promote their magazines, promote. That's what Formula One is. It's not just a couple of Ferraris going into turn 1 in Monza, which was amazing a couple of weeks ago. It is entertainment on every level, and everyone wants to be part of it. But Joe, those track walks we want to be on that grid, don't we, as fans? So what Martin brings and going around talking to everyone, we just want to be there. Like you and I have been really close to doing that, and we know how lucky we've been working in Paddock Club, doing our pit lane walks, an hour before the race. One of my favourite things I've done over the last 5 years is actually FaceTime my dad and give him his own personal pit walk. And he'll have Sky Sports on at home, and he'll be like, "Oh, go up to the McLaren garage, or go so-and-so's in the Mercedes garage, go and do that." I'm like, "Dad, stop looking at the television. Just follow me for a little bit, and we'll have our own." Such
one of my favourite moments.
Such a joy.
Is being in Qatar Grand Prix down the pit lane and being on FaceTime with you.
Yes.
and calling you, and you'll be there like this, with your sons watching the telly, and then you'll be like glance at the phone. Oh look, it's there right now. And then I'm following the TV crews, or I'm talking to some drivers or mechanics or something.
Mechanics, yeah. You were in Aston Martin, is where you were. I can remember it well.
Yeah, I think I was Aston Martin. A friend of mine works. Big shout out to Mikey Brown, who I think is one of the lead mechanics. Actually, he's the lead mechanic at Aston Martin. This ginger guy with the beard, you'll see him at Aston Martin. Is always up there with the drivers. He's been there since Force India, I think. It may have been before. And what a ride! And now he's up there with like a top 3 team.
Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible. So it just shows as well. Sometimes you just got to hang on, and it's a good lesson for life, really.
Do you know what?
Hanging long enough,
Joe. I think it really is a good lesson there, because somebody has to do the job. Everybody sees Formula One on telly, and I did growing up, and it was just this thing that was miles away, all over the world. It wasn't touchable, but actually, I think we should all believe if somebody wants to work in F1. I've got my son at the moment racing in go-karts, with a dream of racing in F1 or working in F1 somehow. You and I, we've had this. I've always loved Formula One, and you rang me, said come and work in it. I think it is touchable, whether as a fan or actually getting in and working at it and having that dream. I think we should all, people should really try and fulfill their dreams and have that belief. It is there. And I'm not to drop names or whatever, and I've mentioned it before, but when I was on Eddie Jordan's boat in Monaco, I got to talk to Andy Stevenson, and that day was the day really Aston Martin could have won the Monaco Grand Prix. And having chats with those people like that, the mechanics on the pit wall, the guys who aren't the drivers, they are absolute legends, and as big to me as the team owners, as the drivers, as the celebrities, and I love those chats.
Well, Darren and I are here, so if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'd love to get into Formula One, but I don't know how to, then please drop us a comment here in YouTube, or send us a message. We'll be happy to help, and maybe try and pass your details to someone who may be able to help if we can't. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast on all the available platforms. And we also now have a new merch shop, which is available at racehouse.cc. Darren's going to go over there now and buy all the shirts and the caps and the water bottles.
I've come in a T-shirt today, Joe. I've let myself down.
That's what, so yeah, exactly. So he needs to get to racehouse.cc, check out the merch, and you can order that online. It's available worldwide. So yeah, we'll be back with our Singapore review next week. It's going to be a crazy race. We're now going to rush off and watch the rest of practice. Enjoy qualifying, and we'll see you on the next episode of Racehouse. See you soon.